Hey everybody, so just back today, just doing a second work in progress. Doesn't seem like I've gotten very far on these, but it feels like I've done a little bit of work. Basically, I put plaster down on all of the bases and then primed all the models, and then from there I did skin tones, and the back row are a darker skin tone. I used GW's dwarf skin, and so it's not that dark, but if you look at it in comparison to the other ones, I used a mixture dwarf skin and Vallejo basic skin tone, and so they're lighter. Now, what I'm intending to do is to just maybe do one highlight above. I'll do like an ink and get some of the dark into the features, cover some of that where it gets over the raised surfaces, and then I'll do a highlight with just something just slightly lighter, and then from there I mean, the idea is that I would have just a little bit of variation in the skin tone among the group, which you don't have to do, but I kind of like to do that, the thought of doing that, just to have it a bit more variable. So actually, since I have this guy in front of me here, this is the only guy that I'm not planning to do just white or blue for the jacket. Now, I guess to backtrack, first of all, I'd like to thank Robert, who's one of the folks that has been commenting regularly on the series a bit here in Times, and because he's provided some correction to some of the things that I said in the last video, which one of the things is that historically I'd said that these guys were irregulars, which is not true. They're actually regulars. In the game, you can actually play them either as regular or irregular troops, and I think that's primarily just to show that as they progressed in the Canadian warfare, in North America, that they actually did pick up a lot of irregular tactics, like working with the Indians and things like that. They became wilderness fighters in addition to regular troops. But beyond that too, I'd said that they were like young, like 16 years old. That was actually about 80 years or so before this conflict. That was in the 1600s, and so they were just essentially like regular troops during the French and Indian Wars. So thanks, Robert, for that, and also for sending some nice plates for photos on uniforms. So what I ended up doing, just taking some of that in consideration, and knowing also that I've got another 20 to paint, is that I really wanted these to be my first regular force for the demo, like sort of to represent the French alongside the Indians. Like, I'm not going to have any French regular troops, from France, all in the tricorns and things, and so basically these are them. And so I'm going to primarily do white and blue. Now, one of the guys, and it's funny because this guy that I just showed you here, he's in a wilderness jacket. It's all fringed out. It doesn't sit well with me to paint this blue or white just because of how it's been sculpted, and so I am going to paint it, in this case, one of the guys as having just sort of a wilderness jacket. And it's kind of funny because this is a really odd box of miniatures. Like, I really like it, but like, he's actually right there, and they did, it's kind of cool that they did some drawings or advertisement on the front to show the miniatures, on the front, sort of in a painting fashion. But on the back, he's actually not in this. Like, if you actually look through these miniatures, this particular guy is not part of this group. And it's kind of funny because, like, this guy here I didn't get, and I got that other guy with the tricorn hat. So I don't know how this set has changed over time, because I do think these minis have been out for a while, and like Conquest owned them before. But there is some differences in what they show in the miniatures you get in the back, and what they show in a painting on the front, and then the miniatures you actually get. I like all the miniatures I got, don't get me wrong. But I think what I'll do, and it's one of the reasons why I painted his leggings blue, because I want him to still fit in, but he's going to have a bit of a wilderness jacket, and then the rest are going to have just the white and the blue. I am going to go, in some cases I've given blue leggings to folks, where I don't give the folks blue leggings, I'm going to give them, in most cases, like a dark brown cloth legging. And so, yeah, so I think I'm pretty happy with that. It's interesting, like, the one guy who is an extra that's not in the set, you know, had cuffs like everybody, and I gave him blue leggings and blue cuffs. Hang on a second here. And that worked out fine. The leader actually doesn't have cuffs, like, sculpted on, so I actually painted on cuffs, because he didn't actually have cuffs sculpted on, which I thought was strange, particularly since the painting actually has cuffs. And so those were just some odd things, and I noticed when they painted him, you don't really see from this photo like the side view is cuffed, but it looked like maybe the inside of the coat, because there's some, you know, some shirt that comes through the sleeves on that model, which I'm going to paint white, but they've painted blue, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah, so coming along, you know, these are all, you know, getting the skin done first, and I've done most of the first attempt at the blue, you know, for all the spots that I want the blue. And then let's zoom in a little closer here just to show some of them, but essentially from there now I'm going to hit the white, which will be mostly the caps and the jackets for the most part. And, you know, with all of this extra stuff that they have, like sashes and pouches and guns and what else, just various kinds of belts and hatchets and stuff, I will likely have to go over the blue and the white again to clean up. Like, already there are some spots where you know, I hit the top of the cap when I was doing blue, or actually it's more pronounced here. You know, I'd hit the top of the cap a little bit, and, you know, just that's just stuff that I'll clean up as I layer other colors. I actually find from the time that I've been painting, you know, which is not incredibly long, but, you know, I've got some time in now, I've found that to try to get things perfect as I go, and not bleed into other areas where I'm going to get where I'm going to be putting color, is actually more counterproductive, and it's the way I started trying to do it, than actually overlapping my colors, because I'll qualify that, but the reason is that, particularly if you're using like a gray primer like I am here, but if you don't want to see the primer underneath, if you try to do everything perfect, then more often than not I find that in the crevices and in certain areas I end up seeing the primer in between them. And it's easier, I find, just to overlap. With that said, acrylic being fairly transparent, depending how much you're thinning it, where you overlap, you just need to make sure that if it's a really dark color, like I'm doing here with blue, and then putting white over it, that you don't, you know, that it's not showing through, that you're using it thick enough in those areas the next color, or applying enough coats that it's going to cover that area that it overlapped. So yeah, so in general, this is where I'm at, first work in progress. It's funny because usually my work in progress is I have all the base painting done, like, you know, by the second work in progress. But for these guys here, yeah, now I've just had a busy week, and this is where I've got to so far. So hopefully I'll get the white done this weekend and get some movement on these guys, because I'm actually starting a new job next week, and with doing that, it's just going to be a lot of training and learning and things like that, and I don't know, it's going to be busy, so I'm hoping I'll have some energy to paint in the evenings afterwards, but we will see. So okay, well, thanks for watching, everybody, and stay tuned for the next work in progress. Take care.